Welcome, Wargamers, to part two of the review of the Not GT run by the EAHC and Joshua Trippett down in Epping. If you've watched our previous video, you'll know how our first two games went on. Across our armies, just a quick reminder, those armies were Gondor, Isengard, Smaug and Grey Company, as well as Thranduril's Halls and Hunter Orcs. We're going now to game 3 of the day, and we're going to start off with Sam. How did your game go?
So I was sitting on 1 win, 1 loss. Obviously, having beaten Larry in the previous game, 12-0, it jumped me up the tables a little bit. And I believe, I want to say I was playing Thomas Smith, who is a EAHC regular, and he had a very nice army of Eagles and Radagast on Slay. And I was using Smaug because it is obviously good versus evil. And I believe the scenario was assassination. It was one that favoured Smaug.
Game 3 was assassination.
Game 3 was assassination. Wonderful, yeah. So a scenario in my favour, straight from the outset. Obviously, Guar can match Smaug in the fight value, but they don't have that many numbers. Obviously, high strength on the charge, lots of attacks, and obviously Radagast with magic was going to be a pain, but yeah, it's Smaug. He doesn't really care. So I believe Tom set up quite aggressive. We was on the Gondor board with all the Osgiliath ruins and the river.
Okay.
So he basically I deployed Smaug quite far back, wanted to try and get a fire breath off and also be out of range of a first turn eagle charge should I lose priority. Because as much as, the eagles aren't scary straight off the bat, they do have potential to do lots of damage. So I set up quite far back, just giving myself options and also putting him in there for the counter charge. Again, if priority was lost. So yeah, with Tom's aggressive setup, he had Radagast in the middle and then the Eagles basically in a line alongside him. I lost priority. Everything moved forward. He moved everything forward. He tried to pop off some magic, but with a 3-pointer will and resistant, Smaug was easily able to ignore it. And in response, I forewent the shooting and charged straight into Radagast, wanted to knock him off that sleigh. Didn't particularly want Radagast on Slay around just because it gives him lots of mobility. And also, for those who don't know, assassination, you basically have to kill the heroes. And it can't be your leader. Radagast was his leader, so Guar here was, the points that I was going for. But he cleverly left Guar here just out of range.
It's one of the newer scenarios where you actually gain points by damaging heroes, and if you can get you each pick a target and you each pick an assassin, and if you can pick if your assassin can take out the target, you get max victory points. Yeah. And then it's like if you can just kill the target, and then so on in there.
Yeah, and the bonus of using Smaug in this scenario is usually you have to pick a hero to be your target and assassin that isn't your leader, but obviously only having Smaug, he is all of those things at once, and it makes it incredibly easy just to go after enemy heroes because you just go that hero, that hero, that hero, that hero,
and in reply they have to try and kill.
They have to kill Smaug.
There's
no other play they can aim for. Managed to obviously win the fight against Radagast, knocked him off, dismounted him. I believe I only did like 2 wounds to him, which was quite poor. Or I may have done 3 and he saved them all with fate. But Radagast lived. And from then on, what did I barge? I might have barged to try and get into an eagle, I think. My memory's failing me. It's been a while now. But yeah, Radagast was knocked off, didn't die, and then I may have charged an eagle, which I then didn't kill. And as per all Smaug games, those eagles were then able to get the jump on him from turn 2 onwards for probably about the next 10 turns. All 3 of them jumping in with Radagast throwing out immobilizers. For the most part, Smaug was successfully resisting them. Obviously, 6 will resist the magic 3-pointer will. When you're losing priority, you don't have to worry about keeping that 3-1 for any flames, so you can quite comfortably throw 2-3 will. at a resist, and not worry about it.
Was Radagast with his staff of power as well?
Yes, Radagast with staff of power, and also Sebastian. I think.
Yes, the magical hedgehog.
Yeah, I'm going to digress and jump forward in time, but I do remember one combat where it was Smaug versus Radagast, and Sebastian's dice won the fight, so that's quite bad. But over the course,
just Smaug going, "What the hell's there? Why is there a hedgehog up here?" Like,
ow, spiky. Put his foot down on it, and it hurt. So yeah, over the next 10 turns, obviously you play through turns quite quick when you're Smaug, because it was literally 3 courage tests for the Eagles. In they go. Do I mobilize? Do I resist? Roll back away. Obviously, Guahir's got quite a tasty profile now, so I was able to strike up a couple of turns. I think I maybe matched one, but again, you want to save it for move offs, really, or bumping up the 5 to a 6. So I was quite content to let the Eagles
8 at base.
8, yeah, he's 8 base, same as Smaug, but obviously he was wanting to bump it up. And he might have also done a few heroic moves as well. So over the course of the turns, he won an incredible amount of fights. Obviously, Eagles 3-4 attacks on the charge, depending on Guahir or normal Eagle. Extra strength, so they were wounding on 5s when they charged. But for some reason, even though Tom could win the fights, he couldn't wound. I think over those 10 combats, he did 6 wounds. Which we worked out was he had like 36 attacks. Should have wounded.
I know what it's like
more.
To mob up on Smaug and only get 6 wounds over the loss of your whole army.
Yeah, and much like our game, Kieran, eventually Guahir ran out of might, or was able to get priority and immobilize one of the Eagles to then charge the other 2. And slowly but surely, Smaug started eating KFC. Managed to get Guahir, which was at that point pretty much game over, because Guahir was both the assassin and the target for Tom. So obviously Smaug killing him was, good points. And I think I'd also killed another Eagle. So he was down to might have been 1 or 2 Eagles and Radagast. And the last ebbs of the game was Radagast and Smaug immobilizing each other, and obviously trying to resist while Smaug hunted down the last Eagle. And eventually managed to get the Eagle, which 25% of him, and the game ended, or if it was broken, I forget the end conditions of it. But yeah, the game ended. Radagast was still alive, hiding on some tower. In the end, I'd given up trying to kill him. Just went after the Eagles, and I don't think Tom had done more than 6 or 7 wounds, which was really unfortunate. And we said to him afterwards, if he had done more wounds in those fights that he had won, especially when he was charging, it could have been a completely different ball game.
Because what is it the Eagles on the charge need to win, Smith?
They need 5s. Not on the charge, they need 6s. So it's still not great odds, but he was throwing enough dice at them where there were some combats where he didn't wound at all, and he was throwing 9-10 dice to wound.
Sure.
And
couple to roll up.
Yeah, I'm expecting a couple to come through and to keep knocking that wound counter down, but he was doing 1 every 2 or 3 turns, and unfortunately it's just not enough to kill Smaug.
Yeah.
And I say, as soon as Smaug starts that reverse snowball and he starts getting into your army, there's not a lot you can do about it.
It's one of those things you kind of need most of your army to be wounding Smaug at one point, but Smaug only needs a couple of good turns to
you almost need to hit Smaug hard and fast. Very, very early on, where you've got the majority of your army, getting down to 3, 4, 5 wounds, a manageable number where if you can win a combat, you can do that amount in one go. If he starts snowballing through your army and you've only done 3 or 4 to him, then you're realistically not gonna come back from it, unless it's a scenario based an objective based scenario. And then you can just play the objective and hope the game ends.
Yeah.
Like you had to. I think we touched on it in the last one. You played that scenario you had to play the scenario rather than
Try
fight
and kill
Smaug. And that is the way to be. It was unfortunate for Tom that A, I didn't play my Rangers, and B, he had to face Smaug in assassination. I think any other scenario, and it would have been a closer game, should we say? So yeah, another maximum win for me. I believe it was 12-0. Oh no, it wouldn't have been 12-0 because I didn't kill his leader. Whatever it was, it was a good win. Might have been like 9-3 because obviously he wounded Smaug. So yeah, 2 wins, 1 loss. Was feeling pretty confident at this point. So yeah, obviously can't use Smaug anymore, which is a shame. I would quite like to just use Smaug across all 4 games.
Have to save that for a blue on blue match where it's 1 army.
Yes.
So rolling on to the next game, which was mine. I've actually taken some pictures. If my computer can get into them, there we go. So this was how things looked at the deployments in my next game. This was up against CJ, who I have only played once before. That was when I was running the Strider Cup. I had a dropout at the last minute on the day of the tournament, so because I'd had something similar happen the year before, I actually had my own army with me at that time, and it was just my basic Numenor army. And the sort of system I have for that is when I play the Strider Cup, I play whoever's in last place, and you basically go, right, you've won the game. Now you have to see how many victory points you can score, and that would that's the only thing they really get from it is these victory points and Strider points that they score in the game. And the reason for that is the last thing that you kind of want at an event, especially if you've got new players, at a relaxed casual event as well, is for them to always be on the bottom table and to from start to finish to be in last place. So the whole idea is that you at least bounce them up for 1 victory, and then whoever else in last place ends up.
You throw them to the wolves, and then the wolves eat them, and they get thrown back down.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I like doing that too.
So I played CJ before, so I kind of I knew that he could play the game really well. Put it that way. Like my experience of playing him last time with his doubles partner Sam Huddy was that they really did know how to approach the game, and they were doing all the right things, like heroic striking combined with heroic combats when it suited them, that kind of style thing. So I was expecting a fairly, tactical match here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well you can see. I'll try and zoom in a little bit. Just as a refresher of my... Okay, so let's try that again. Sorry, my computer does seem to be running a little bit slower today. Here we go. My list, it's the all-mounted Gondorian. You can see Boromir with his banner in the centre. I've got Faramir out here on one flank, and I've got Baragon here on this flank. Over here, you can see CJ's Moria force, so it's mostly goblins. He had a good number of prowlers as well, that's worth pointing out. Prowlers are pretty good because they start with an increased fight value, and they've got throwing weapons. And if you can pull it off, you might notice he's got Groblog somewhere in the middle here. Groblog can give goblins a bonus fight value as well on a 4+. And they've also got the Moria special rule, which is it's either outnumber or trap your opponent. I think it might be trap. They get a bonus +1 to their fight value as well. So very quickly, even these basic Prowler goblins go up to, potentially fight 5 if you let them. So it's quite a threatening list in some ways.
Is that their army bonus? I'm going to go grab their book to have a look.
Yeah, if you check that for me. I know it's something, but they do get something equivalent to backstabbers or something, maybe. I can't remember.
I'll be back in a sec.
So at the back as well, you might be able to see there's a couple of bat swarms. Actually, one of those is just a tree, but there were 2 bat swarms in play, I think.
No, they're both swarms.
Those are bat swarms
on that board. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, cool. That is a bat swarm.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just because the colours are different. Bat swarms, I am a big fan of ever since I randomly decided to take 8 of them to the Seven Stones tournament. They're a lot tougher than I think people give them credit for. They've got 4 wounds, so they're really difficult to take out in one hit. They reduce your fight value down, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. And the biggest thing that I think they have going for them, and it's also the most underrated thing, is that they have a 12-inch glide move, which does mean that more often than not, they appear in the worst possible place because you just kind of forgot that they were there, if that makes sense. They just kind of hover somewhere near the back of the line, and then once you've engaged, they jump over and pin you in a place that you don't want to be. On top of that, he had 2 Goblin Shamans, one with the Shatter and one just a regular Moria Shaman. And over here, you can see this great big thing, which CJ was calling Admiral Snack Bar. So it's assassination, and the first thing you've got to do is work out who your target is and who your assassin is. So my assassin for the game was Faramir. It couldn't be Boromir, and I figured of the two, Faramir had a better chance than Baragon. I was almost tempted to swap those two around and make Baragon my assassin on the basis of he is on horseback. If he gets up against, say, a Moria Shaman with 4 attacks, he might do it. But the thing that swung it in the end was the fact that he's only got 1 might compared to 3. And then when I really thought about it as well, I tried to get in my opponent's head and think, well, who would I pick as the target in CJ's position? And basically, you go for Baragon. He's 1 wound, 1 fate. And I thought, actually, I'm going to make Faramir my assassin and then just free up Baragon. So his one job all game is to just survive, never commit, stay out of the fighting, and just try and live. Looking at the other side of the board, I figured that the assassin trying to take me on would be the Watcher in the Water.
that's a fun model to have as an assassin, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it can pop up anywhere. It's got something like 6 attacks at strength 6. It's a hell of a lot of a better choice than his other 2 options, which were like...
Shamans.
He did actually have Groblog. I can't remember which one was the leader. I think it may have been Groblog and Durbers, maybe? I can't remember which one.
I think it would have to be Durbers. Durbers is Hero Legend.
Ah, right. So at the time, potentially...
it's Hero of Valor, but he's still higher than Groblog.
Right. So either way, one of them could also have been the assassin. And I think, this is just from having spoken to Jay Clare about the other scenario where you can pick like a hidden information, like where you have a specific hero you want to take out or a specific objective to reach. It's amazing how much of a double blind you can play.
Yeah.
Like sometimes there are really obvious choices, but if he'd say not gone with the Watcher and picked a Goblin as an assassin, I probably wouldn't have seen it coming. Because that one's just such an obvious choice. Yeah. Anyway, deployment, he deployed up to the centre line. The Watcher is not in play because it pops up during game. This is a fairly classic start, I think, for Goblins. You have your expendable troops in the front, you've got your support leaders at the back, and a couple of bat swarms just to tie up heroes or do whatever they need to. I deployed a little way back from the centre line. This is a cavalry thing where you want to be getting the first turn charge, you don't want to be receiving one. And you don't necessarily have to charge first turn either, but basically you want to be set up so you have the option should an opportunity present itself. I've played games like this where for some reason people have stuck a single warband over here and the rest of the army over here. In that circumstance, you can get a really solid charge off early and not have to commit the rest of your force. This was also on the really lovely Rohan board. I know you can all see the terrain there. Really enjoyed playing on this board, in spite of sort of the amount of it. Like cavalry tend to like big open spaces, and I knew from the setup of this I'd have to be careful with where I chose to fight because the one thing you don't want to do with cavalry is get locked off in a particular section of an area where you can't use your mobility. Rolling on to the second picture, I think that's just another snap I took of the setup, really. Okay, so this was turn after turn 1. So CJ has moved up to the centre here, and you can see he's effectively controlling this area really nicely. If I wanted to charge him, all I can do is hit the front rank, and wherever I hit, there are always going to be a minimum of 1 goblin with shield or prowler backed up by a spear.
Yeah.
And potentially, I can't actually remember whether I moved first or second here, but if I had charged into this line before moved, these bat swarms could then jump over the sides as well. So I've got Baragon's warband over to the side here. these guys at the back are just 3 riders. Again, at this stage, I didn't know where the Watcher was going to be, so while I could send Baragond out on his own, problem is if I completely isolate him early, the Watcher is just going to pop up, and then I've got nothing to support him with. So the plan at this stage was to keep Boromir near Baragond. So wherever the Watcher comes up, Boromir can hopefully engage it, and Baragond can get out of there. My main line's fallen back, and that might look a little bit strange for what you'd expect cavalry to do, but there are reasons for it. So whilst the centre has fallen back, this flank group led by Faramir has actually pushed over to this side, and that's to increase my threat range on the flank. So if he chooses to advance here, he leaves himself more open to an attack from here. But essentially, it's trying to deliver sort of more horsemen to an area where he's weak without actually being overwhelmed by his reinforcements, if you know what I mean. Whichever way he pushes for, I can harry the other side whilst being able to keep, either my centre or my flank protected. One other thing, and this isn't unique to CJ, by the way, who I'll also say played a really sporting game. Really enjoyed this game. Really sort of generous, kind of I think on both sides, kind of like, oh, can I reposition this or can I just move this? It's like we weren't playing a really fun, tense game, even on one of the higher tables. So big shout out to my opponent for the sportsmanship on that one. In this situation, and I've had it happen with a number of opponents, people sort of say, oh, come on, charge, and a lot of people have done that to me over the years when I'm using all cavalry or using my 40k Raven Wing. And I think it comes a little bit from the frustration of not having mobility control. They can't make the battle happen until you choose to charge them. And so you do get a lot of, oh, come on, charge, don't be a coward, that kind of stuff. But if you're running all cavalry, ignore it. The whole reason you've taken these really expensive all-mounted units is so that you have the ability to pick where the battle is going to happen. Every other army have the option to pick, well, most of the other armies have the option to pick their own cavalry, their own archers, that kind of thing, stuff that forces you to commit to a charge. So don't ever be intimidated into engaging on anything but your own terms when you're using an all-mounted force. So, moving on a bit. This was the next turn. The Watcher has popped up in that back corner. In response to that Watcher popping up, Baragond and his escort have moved over to this way. Boromir is moved right back into this part here. Again, this is basically because these goblins have not quite ready to charge him. That information is still pretty strong. Again, maybe this was me being a little bit more protective than I needed to be. Maybe I could have, Boromir is quite fearsome on the charge. There is a good chance I could have done some damage to the goblins here. Again, I think I'm just wary about engaging anywhere near buildings like this because there's a very good chance that you can hold this area and lock it off and limit my ability to get around, move through, punch through, that kind of thing.
But then on the contrary there, kind of catching that shield, catching goblins. I know you wouldn't usually charge a normal shield wall, when they're blocked off like that, but charging goblins where they can't bring their numbers to bear, may have possibly been, a play, to try and almost hold them there before they could get out into some open space and then, surround you guys, surround the horses.
I mean, I think that's a pretty valid point. We'll go on to it towards the end, but
yeah.
There was one big learning point that I did take away from this game. I think the other thing at this time was that because this Watcher was here, I wanted to make sure that Boromir was, quite close on hand to to deal with it. There were going to be two options. I think the Watcher can still disappear now, so he could have chosen to and then reappear with this guy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can dive. I'll have a look.
So again, at this stage, I'm just not sure I was ready to commit to the fight because I didn't know what the long-term effect of this Watcher was going to be, and if I could get a single charge off with Boromir, that could hopefully give me a chance to, take it out. Over on this side, I've left a few riders here just to harry this flank, and if you look here, I've charged in on both flanks. So I've got a few riders charging a couple of goblins over here. I've got a few riders charged up against this little block here. I think that's Faramir in there as well. I'd have liked this side to be a bit cleaner. Again, there's a really small space held with about 6 goblins here. I could only get 2 riders in. Ideally, I'd have liked to have had a 3rd rider in, but I just kind of misjudged the distance. So, have these guys up here.
Yeah.
Both the bat swarms are in the centre, so if you like that, CJ's mobile reserve. Wherever I commit at this stage, those bat swarms can go and reinforce. Again, maybe thinking a bit too much about the battle and less about the specific targets in this, which is assassinate and, picking out your hero. Both the shamans are locked away in the centre here, so still pretty heavily protected. Moving on, I think very quickly, I did quite well on both flanks, as in I think I maybe killed 1 goblin here, lose any men. On the other side, I think I killed a couple of goblins, just got the numerical superiority going a little bit on sides. Next picture.
So, just quickly, regarding the Watcher in the Water and diving, it can only do that if it uses its brutal power attack. Its specific brutal power attack.
Okay.
And it has to, it has to succeed at that brutal power attack, which is you do a wound on a 3+, which can then be saved by fate. If it's not saved by fate, then you drag the model down to back down. It's killed. It's instantly slain, and the Watcher's removed, and then it can come back up from the next turn.
Okay, so it is more limited than I gave it.
It is more limited, yeah. I guess if you used it, if you needed to reposition, you could pull in a warrior, eat it, and dive that way. But it does seem a very risky way of repositioning, especially as it's 1 dice on a 3+. The odds there are not high enough for it to be worth it, I don't think.
So, if you can see, this is kind of like it's almost there, but not quite. This is basically what you tend to like to do with a cavalry force, is that you like to have surrounded your opponent and to start putting pressure on them. You really like it if you can get a lot of your army onto bits of theirs whilst they've still got unengaged models. So the Watcher's still over here. Boromir's little band has gone back to the centre again. I think there were a couple of goblins here who got ganged up on by... that was it. CJ called heroic move to send most of his army over in the direction of Beregond, who is behind this house here. In response to that, not all... some of my cavalry went in because some of his goblins could not move as part of that heroic. So I pounced on a handful of goblins over here. I've got a couple of riders over here still engaged in this flank, and Faramir's lot have started to sweep round into the rear of his army. Try and zoom in a bit so you can just see some of the more specific areas. Hopefully that's not too bad resolution-wise. So Boromir's here. It's worth pointing out that he had a Gundabad chain, and I think I forgot to mention that in the previous turn he tried to cast Shatter on Boromir and had passed it on like a 5 or something. So I threw 2 will at it to keep the Banner of Minas Tirith in, and succeeded. I think this turn he tried it again, got it off, and I think this time cast it on a 6, threw my last will point at it. Could have chosen to spend something like 4 points of might to resist it. I rolled a 2 for the resist, but I opted not to. It was a bit of a drag because it's a 50-point banner that buffs all the fight values, but at the end of the day, I'm still against goblins, and in cavalry armies you need might for charging, and you need might for fighting through. You don't need as might for, you don't necessarily need the banner as much as you need the might superiority, or at least that was my take on it.
Does Shatter get rid of banners? Because it's not a weapon.
I thought it could. I thought it could apply to any piece of equipment.
Sorry, Chris, were you just saying something there?
Yeah, I thought it was any piece of war gear.
Oh, if it's war gear. The only reason I ask is many years ago when I was using Boromir with Banner, this came up at a Warhammer World GT. This is obviously it predates even the Hobbit edition.
Yeah.
And I called over one of the judges, and made my point that the banner. I think maybe the wording's changed, but basically made the point of Boromir's banner isn't a weapon. And the judge agreed, and I was able to keep the banner but lost the sword. So I was running around with a banner at -2, but was fight 7.
I mean, I've got a feeling that you can target it now because I think certain things may have got streamlined, like it counts as warrior, and I think you can shatter banners, but it's worth checking. I mean, the other thing
I've not got the rulebook to hand, so
is he threw all of his spells into the shatter rather than tremor. Again, it sort of swings and roundabouts. The shatter did impact Boromir pretty heavily, and he is my big hero. So I can't fault him on that. But equally, I don't like Tremor either. It's harder to cast, but because it can knock off multiple horses, it's a quick way of losing your cavalry advantage.
Yeah.
There's a couple of goblins engaged with my knights in the rear. There's a couple on the flank. I've lost one horse here, so I've got that may have been to a throwing weapon, or maybe I lost a horse last turn. I can't remember. So I've charged in on this side too. The big scrum is now happening on this side, where the forces that I committed on that side have been engaged by the bat swarms. I think I countercharged here to get into Groblog. And at this point, I started to suspect, or my suspicion was confirmed, that he was going for Baragond and not Faramir, because this is where he chose to move most of his army to. Watcher, that's it. The Watcher's still pinned in place because I charged it with a single Citadel Guard. This did leave it open to a heroic combat, but either way, it's still only getting its base move rather than being 4 inches closer. So again, this was a holding action. This guy had nothing better to do than to try and just hold the Watcher up. It didn't really matter too much if he bit dust.
Yeah, it is odd that CJ sought to bring him in the corner, because having such a low move, basically, and because your cavalry means you can just leave it behind, and it can move 4 and use its tentacles, but that's still only a 10-inch range. So if you start more than an inch away and move your full move, he's never catching the army, and a big 250-point model isn't going to do anything.
He did at one stage say something to the effect of, I think I've used him quite badly, like what we're playing. And I think in retrospect, he saw that. I think the specific reason why he's there was he made sure that Boromir was not within line of sight when he deployed it.
Right.
And the other thing to bear in mind is that Baragond was a lot closer to him when he deployed. It's just nothing blocking Baragond off in the other direction. He used his full 10-inch move to get away.
Yeah.
Again, it's the reason I love cavalry is that you can redeploy in a heartbeat. You might have fewer men, but when you have the mobility advantage and have a good feel of how to use it, I just love playing with cavalry armies. There is no compare. So moving on. What's happening here? So this is the full cavalry ring now engaged. Let's zoom in a little bit. So I've still got a couple of guys out on this flank, but most of my army now has flowed into either side. I think maybe a turn or two may have skipped over, might be a couple of turns more ahead. We've got Boromir on this side, leading the charge to try and punch through this thing of goblins here. Again, it's a nice shield wall, but it's a hell of a lot less of a shield wall than what CJ started with. Some of those troops have gone round to the back, along with the Watcher. The Watcher model's over here, but he's using a base at this point just because it was getting quite close together. Same thing with Smaug,
those Watcher tentacles are an absolute pain in the butt. I've got the Watcher. You usually have to reverse them into a fight, because those tentacles overlap the base quite a bit.
My force led by Faramir is now fully engaged in the back, and pretty much every horseman that was with Baragond is now fighting on this side against bat swarms as well. So at this stage, it's really important to note that the Watcher moved up and was looking to get those tentacles shooting at Baragond. Pretty sure that was his intent, to drag him off his horse and to drag him into base contact and win the game that way. He did really well. He had won the heroic move on this side, and he had engaged a lot of my knights with things like bat swarms, goblins, tying them up, forming a block that Baragond was going to struggle to escape. The bit that caught him on the that I think surprised CJ was when I moved. Baragon started like here when my cursor's hovering. Baragon voluntarily dismounted, and then just had enough. Like it was millimeters that he made it by, but he just had enough room to run between this rider and this fence post. So he got onto his feet and made a 6-inch move out to here to basically get back onto a side where I've got men to protect him. It doesn't really matter that there's like a, what you call them? Forgot to mention he had one of the Goblin Cavalry.
Oh, the White Marauders.
Yeah. So he had one of them, the Bat Swarms here. As long as I can keep enough men protecting Baragons and dragging those enemies off of him and keeping the Watcher far away on this side, Baragon is pretty much safe. There's very little that he can do to catch me up now because he doesn't have any non-committed cavalry or magic casters that can compel him. So yeah, at this stage, I was happy that Baragon had escaped, but I was also quite conscious that I still was nowhere near his shaman. So at this point, I was realizing that the game was moving towards a draw. I had lost maybe a couple of horses and a couple of riders. I was in pretty good shape. You can see his casualties starting to line the walls up here. So I was almost, getting towards breaking him, but still have not done what I needed to win the scenario. So really, this stage of the game is me trying to hammer the goblins for as much as possible to start, leveling the score. At least try and break him and get a victory point. But hopefully punch through to the shaman as well and win the scenario that way. I think this is just the same shot again. Yeah, nothing new there. Moving on. Is that the same shot again?
I think you've got the same photo 3 times in a row.
And the fourth from the look of it.
Yep.
I think the other thing is, on the quality of the pictures is obviously while you're playing, you're still under time conditions, so you're trying your best not to slow play or slow the game down by taking pictures. Obviously, you want to have some clue as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I think this is the shot from the final turn of the game. So I think CJ got a few more kills. Certainly took out a lot more horses. You can see I've got a few dismounted riders and Cicel guards decked around. Baragond, that's not actually his base. That's the base of a knight that I put in front of him to deny any ability for Bat Swarms to be able to charge him. Even if they could get into range, they wouldn't be able to see him because of that horse blocking the way. Or at least hopefully adding to the, blocking the stuff, any more getting in. Or just providing a control zone so that if the Bat Swarm did go in, it had to engage both of them. So Baragon survived. Nice and healthy. I think he spent his might point to do a heroic move. That's all he needed to do all game as far as I was concerned. Over here, we've got a few more knights just trying to rack up kills, really. At this stage, doesn't really matter too much how many men I lose, but I'm desperate to try and get as many kills as possible. Grublog, still nice and strong over here. I did get Faramir into a fight with him once during the game, but he called a heroic defense. So Faramir pretty much bounced off of him. Over here, you've got Boromir, who is fighting. That's it. He's fighting a goblin. I think he did a heroic move in an effort to try and punch through to the shaman, but that was it. Couldn't actually, due to the way the other models were aligned, he couldn't actually get through. So he ended up in, this might not be the final turn actually, but Boromir ended up in a single combat with Durbers on the last turn of the game. It's really funny because Boromir was on his last might point, having used the rest to win fights, kill models, or declare heroic, get the whole rest of the army, on heroic moves. But on the final turn, he had been shattered twice, so he didn't have a sword or a banner. Durbers declared a heroic defense, which, because being unarmed is a -1 on both your dual roll and your wound roll, meant that he couldn't do anything. He can't score wounds on an unmodified roll of a 6. So it was literally the only action to end the game on for him was calling his own heroic defense to stop Durbers wounding him. Which was a shame, but,
one of them things.
Yeah, and fair play to CJ for hitting him with double shatter. And yeah, so basically the last turn of the game, I was desperately trying to get the points for breaking or to reach Shaman, and I just couldn't do it. I ran out of steam, and we tallied up the models, and in the end, it was something like the last goblin in the fight. I needed a 4 to wound and rolled 3 or something stupid. After all the effort, it was a 0-0 draw.
Yeah. I remember you coming over to me because obviously I was sitting at the results bench helping Josh. The game had gone pretty much to time, and you came over and was like, "Oh yeah, 0-0." And I just remember being like, "What have you been doing for 2 hours or however long it was? Like, have you not been playing?" I was like, "No, I've nearly broken in 1 off, but 0-0." I'm like, "All right."
My takeaway from this game was that Boromir's warband did spend 1 turn too many not engaged. I'm really happy with the way that they did engage. Once they got there, they kind of waited until the troops were split up and then just hammered into as many as they could. That's classically how I play the cavalry, because you can't afford to lose. You can't afford to have that 1 turn where you lose a lot of riders, because if you lose them early, you're never going to catch up. They're always the infantry is always going to outnumber you and hammer you.
Yeah.
The thing I learned was that I played too cagily with Boromir, probably because I'm used to using Rohan and Boromir essentially being Éomer. Éomer is also quite strong, but he's not Boromir. He hasn't got 6 might points to fall back on to run trouble, or a Horn of Gondor.
Yeah, or fight 7.
Yeah. So that was my big, I think, learning thing was, whilst 9 times out of 10, you need to be very careful when you choose to commit and where you choose to commit. Sometimes you do need to just keep your eye on the timer and make sure that you don't leave it too late. Because if I did even 1 more casualty, this would have been a very narrow win for me. I don't think he would have ever caught Beregond. He could have sent the Bat Swarms after him, and then there's every chance. But I still think at this stage I was in pretty strong position. And he kept those Shaman behind a wall of goblins, so I think he sussed really quickly who I'd chosen to target. It would have been hard for me. I certainly don't want to pick the Watcher as my target. I mean, you can argue it's a threat to be dealt with, and by taking it out, you stop it hunting yours, but equally, it's a pretty tough model to kill compared to the rest of the
Isn't only defense 6, fight 6?
Defense 6, 5, 6. Yeah,
it can't strike. So I mean, strike.
Okay.
No, it can't strike. So I mean,
maybe that should have been my target then.
As soon as it popped up, I would have sent Boromir and 6 knights. Straight for it. You higher fight, and Boromir's going to have 4 attacks on the charge with 6 might. You're going to get the 6, and then you lance it to death. You'd be wounding it on 5s on the normal guys, and 5s all rounds. You probably could have quite easily done 7 wounds to it because he's got a fate point.
Again, I have to admit, I kind of just thought trying to get a good turn against the Shaman was maybe easier. But that's the problem. It's a lot easier to hide a Shaman than it is to Watcher. So again, maybe next time, being a bit more familiar with how to play against the Watcher, maybe that will be my target.
Yeah. I mean, the Shamans, I guess, are enticing because much like Beregond, it's an easy model. They got 2 wounds, 1 fate. They got no combat capability. But you got to get to them.
That's always the hard bit with any Shaman.
Yeah.
Beating the line.
Yeah.
Cool. So that was my game 3. Going back to Chris, how was your game?
Yeah. So I played against, you probably saw in the background of some of Kieran's pictures there, my game was against Jack Brennan, who is the treasurer of the EAHC thing and helped organise this with Josh. Really lovely opponent. We rolled so that I was evil, so I had my Azog hunters, and he had Iron Hills, which I was not looking forward to trying to my way through. But if anyone could do it, then it would be Azog. So he had Dane on pig, a captain, not lovely conversion on goat, and a Iron Hills Blister. Yes. Do you have any? I don't think he had any other goat riders. I think the rest of it was just all the standard shield wall, Iron Hills dwarves. I had so many options here. I had Thimble, Yasneg, and Narzog as my three heroes who could do killing stuff. Thimble had the fight value and could charge through difficult terrain, which was handy, and there's plenty of it about. Yasneg has Lance, so he had nice killing buffs to get through that defense 8 shield wall. And I had Narzog who had a bow, because I don't think in this it's specified that you had to kill your target in combat.
No, I don't think so. I think you just had to kill him.
Yeah. So my immediate target was, well, it couldn't be Dan because he's the leader. The captain's still pretty tough to take out, but the siege veteran is a hero.
Yeah.
So similar to Kieran in that it was an easier target, but I had to get through lines of Iron Hills, Dwarf Wall, and a Dane to get to it. But I did have a Narzog to charge him out, so that was my thinking. There was also quite a few minute debate about whether the White Wild counted as a hero in herself and whether she could be the one to stuff.
Yeah.
I think technically she is because she has her own might, will, and fate.
Yeah, and she has a profile.
She has a profile. So Josh did rule that I could use her if I wanted, and Jack could choose her to kill. But that would mean that he had to go through Azog, and it would also mean that I'd have to use her fight value and strength and strikes to kill stuff, and not use Azog on top. It was too complicated to do anyway, so I just used Azog.
Yeah. I guess
I had multiple. Go on.
I guess in a similar vein, could you then choose Shadowfax as your hero?
Yeah, because he's got points.
He's got
hasn't he? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd choose to target Shadowfax. Interesting. Anyway, digress.
So yeah, I went for Narzog because I thought I have more options with him. I can sit back and shoot with him and do it that way, or I can get in there and deal with him. So I can do a couple of different things with him. I then realised after picking him and writing it down that he's going to choose Narzog because he's arguably the weakest. I don't know, they're all about the same. Defense 5, 2 weak, 1 fate. Less likely to get in the combat though, so I don't know. There was one of the could be the 3. It's really hard to.
I suppose it comes down to like if I was going up against your list, it would be a really hard call because Narzog, might not be as good in combat, but you've still got to get to them. Whereas the other two, if you're not committing them, then you know what I mean. You kind of want your other two in combat.
Yeah, they're not doing anything.
Yeah, I would have maybe picked Yasneg because out of the 3, he was always my least favourite. Even though he had the lance, he never I found Narzog way more effective in combat, which I know sounds odd. But whenever I needed, that relief, Narzog would charge in and help out, whereas Yasneg would just run into something that I'd expect him to kill with his lance and just get thrown off his warg or killed in a turn. Don't know why.
Funny stuff. There's a warg that comes in this game, but we'll get to that in a couple of turns. But also, after I'd chosen and deployed it down, I somehow completely forgot because he hadn't deployed it on the board yet. Was his bloody ballista? So Narzog could not really stand back, just shoot because that ballista would take him out in one go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to stand there and shoot my bow. Okay, I'm going to shoot you with a giant spear.
I think that bolt is a bit bigger than mine. You can probably see in the background how spaced out all my Hunter Rocks are because Defense 4 Hunter Rocks are not going to do well against this scattered crossbow bolt coming into them. So I pretty much use the full 4x4 board just
spread out.
Yeah. There's a common consensus in SVG where you only use like a 1x1 portion of the board because all the battle happens in one place. No, I used all of the board in this. He's set up between 2 houses. Got his shield wall sort of like perfectly aligned, like 10 across, 10 behind, something like that. Banner in there as well. Dane, I think he did have one other go rider as well, actually thinking about it. was in behind to start with, and he had his Capo Rider on one of the flanks because that was still scary. And then obviously the Siege Veteran right at the back of the board. He deployed in front of a barrier. It was a wall piece. So you had the two houses either side and a wall in the middle, but there was about a cavalry-sized 40 mil gap either side of the fence to get between the houses and the fence. Luckily or unluckily for me, he got there first to defend the barrier. So not only do I have to strike to get over the barrier, I also have to get through defense 8 dwarves.
Yeah.
That restricted him to within the 12 inches of the minimum range of the ballista.
Yeah.
That means into that 12-inch minimum range and not be hit by it. So all of a sudden, all of my hunter rocks converge in this very small space, and I go back to what I said about you use a very limited
Part of the board. Yeah.
So we're trying to stay within this, like, trying to squeeze into this small space, not to be hit by this ballista. He did get 3 or 4, maybe 5 chances at trying to shoot the ballista at something, and it missed every single time on a 2.
How many points is the ballista?
The ballista, it's 125 now, isn't it, or something?
Yeah. 125.
It
It was less. It was like 100.
I think it was 90.
It might have been 90.
It was horrible. My shooting obviously did nothing. So I had 50% bows, and obviously needed 6s, 5, 10s or something. So that did next to nothing. So Thimble, Azog, and Nazog just went straight for the dwarven line and went to smash through it. Azog went into 2 dwarfs, quarter at combat. He needs 5s to get through them. No, 6s. No, he does still need 6s. Strength 5 against defense 8. Still needs a 6s.
Yeah.
Didn't even win. So
wow.
That was. Dane. Yasneg won his. That was the thing I was afraid about. So while his lance was really good, getting ones to wound against the dwarves, his fight value was still the same. But he was able to get 6s every time, kill 2, move into 2 more, kill 2. He was like bossing everything.
So the opposite of when I used to use him.
Yeah, pretty much using him wrong.
Yeah.
Bimble had his fight values. He was winning through fights, but he was like 1 and not 2, so he wasn't calling the heroic combats. He'd easily kill one of the 2 that he was fighting. Dane at this point, so this is where Jack made a huge mistake and possibly won me the game inadvertently, we found out in the end. Maybe. Spoilers. He moved Dane away because he confused my Azog with the Azog's Legion one, thinking that he had Master of Battle when I did not. So he was trying to sort of go away from me and kill some of the sporadic hunter orcs to get to Nazog, behind him at the back, trying to ping a couple of shots in, but not having any success. Trying to stay out of 6 of Azog, does not give me a free hero at combat, which I wouldn't have got anyway. Yeah, I saw him measuring out the 6 inches, but I thought he was doing it for him to get nearer, trying to benefit from his Master of Battle. So I didn't say anything. I thought that he was trying to get free hero combats off of Azog. He was trying to avoid me getting them. Didn't need to worry. So there's a hunt putting Dane behind the house fighting 100 each and just way out of the way of the battle, me not having to worry about him. I was like, wow, that's it. Then the Azog, second turn, Azog calls for combat, rolls a 4, he gets 6s. I use 2 might to win it. I was like, right, I'm going to kill some stuff. I'm getting over them now. Doesn't cover them. I was like, oh, you're a jerk. 4 might down, haven't killed anything with Azog. Next turn, at combat, I'm going to do something. Right, finally, Azog kills 2, kills 2 more, and all of a sudden that's like, I don't know, like 15% of his army in one go. And then
nice.
This was right in the middle of the game. Fimble's still doing his stuff. Nazog is close enough. keeping his might though. I've got a plan in mind that now Azog has punched through like the freight train he wasn't. Azog was basically gonna. So Azog would go through the the best way to do it, go through the gap, and then Azog would basically follow him in behind, and then basically just push straight through to the blister, and Azog would just sort of like tag along. Basically, he could be a passenger on the White Ward. He essentially was. This is the key moment. Was Yazneg charged into 2 Einhorn dwarves. I rolled a 5, I think, with Yazneg. Jack, with his 4 dice or whatever, got like a 4 best, so I won the fight. His banner was in range. He thought, but it was very, very, very close. And I was like, just roll it, see if it makes a difference. Then we won't even have to measure it. Rolled it, and obviously it gets a 6, so it matters. Like little 3-inch ruler, and basically because he was impartial to both of us, he moves a couple of models either side. So this was basically, if he was within 3 inches, obviously Jack gets a 6, wins the fight. 4 dice would give Yazneg's Warg. This would also be the difference between me killing like 4 dwarves with Yazneg, essentially. He'd go into 2 more. Josh very gingerly pushes this little ruler in between in between the dwarf that was in range of the banner, and the banner, and it, like, I don't know how neither one of them didn't move, but they didn't. It wasn't in range by probably a millionth of a millimeter. Waiting for one of them to, somehow it didn't. I was like, oh wow. Yes,
that is lucky.
Fight, kills the dwarves with the lance, moves into 2 more, kills 2 more. Then all of a sudden he's like one off breaking. Meanwhile on the flank, the goat captain is getting stuck on like 2 hunter orcs, not being able to do anything. The other side, Dane's getting stuck on like 1 hunter orc on Felwarg. So it's all pretty much going my way. I saved Nazog's might for this. So Fimbo, I think, still had 1. Azog was out because he was fluffing all his rolls everywhere. Yazneg had used it all to kill like 14 dwarves in 1 turn. I lost not too many hunter orcs actually, considering 4s. I was getting quite lucky and rolling over the fence. The hunter orcs needing only 6s and not 6s by 4s against defense 8 was huge. So he was paying all those points for the shield wall and the defense 8, but it was that thing again of, I think we said in game 1 in the last video, like the Galadrim paying all these extra points for defense 6 and it means nothing.
Yeah.
So all of these like cost 12 points, 13 points dwarves to my hunter orcs at like half the points. It meant nothing. The strength 4 was everything. So they were able to kill a couple here and there. Especially since I had 2 attacks, his 2 attacks and back as well. So yeah, Azog managed to finally punch through, and then Nozog peeled off at the end with his 3 might points. Fimble had 1. I was able to pull a right move with one of them, I think, and then like march with the other, and then just sling myself right up close to the siege veteran. Next turn, when Nozog had another might point to right move into him, and basically swamped him with Nazog, Yazneg, Azog, and all 4 of them.
That's mean.
And Nazog just did like, because obviously it was only 1 fate, 1 wound, the siege veteran. Nazog with his 4 dice, still with a might point attack.
Yeah.
Finished. And somehow, I managed to get a 12-0 win against 9 Hills Force. And
very good. Nice.
Dane did sweet FA.
Yeah.
He realised afterwards, I think it was probably about 3/4 of the way through, like, oh, you don't have Master of Battle, do you? So it's desperately trying to chase down Azog towards the secret. I was able to put 1 hunter rock in the way each time. was trying to follow me around this house. So we got through in the end.
Well done. That was sounds like some good play there.
Vlogging.
Yeah.
How much do you think that mistake cost him overall? Like, do you think it would have been a completely different game if he sort of clocked what roles he did have?
Yeah, because Dane would be able to take out Thimble and Yasnik in one go. Like, as soon as one of them break through, he just got that gap. As soon as because I was able to flood through basically 3 portions of his line in one turn. If Dane was there plugging holes or, doing his thing, then yeah, basically that could well have been the difference. 160 points. I was basically paying 700 points against 540.
I guess the other thing is if Dane does plug that gap, even if he doesn't kill your heroes, he's still a roadblock to stop you from getting through to the ballista.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in him. In my cavalry, so he didn't get any whatever, just like blocking him up. I'm not. But he's literally worth what 1 BP in the scenario, 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so yeah, I'm a 10-0 win actually, because I didn't touch Dane.
It's pretty good. That puts you on 3-1. 3-0. Yeah, 3-0.
And I'm on 2 wins and a draw, and you're on 2 wins and a loss, Sam?
2 wins and a loss, yes.
Going pretty well.
It's also, just as a quick side note, it's amazing what you forget or what you misremember when you're on game 3 of like a single day of tournament. Like, I found it in other events, like it happened to me once in a 40k event. Is like you actually start getting quite mentally fatigued with trying to remember and track everything. And, the number of mistakes I've noticed in my own performance, the number of mistakes I make in the afternoon compared to the morning is huge compared to like how I play, remember stuff in the morning.
Completely agree. If all tournaments were 2 games before lunch, I'd win a lot more.
Well, so last year it was pretty good for me, like tournament wise. I managed to win 3 tournaments last year, and it's no coincidence they were all 3-game tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, you can win. Yeah, I could probably win a 3-game event, but any more than that, my brain just goes, nah.
It carries on in this tournament as well. You'll see.
Yeah.
So going on to my last game,
which coincidentally was also my last game. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So even though we played first game under a grudge match, what did it say? Sorry, I'm just skimming through photos as it seems to. There we go. Our last game was Storm the Camp against each other. And unlike the first game where I had to play against Smaug, first time I'd ever played it, I was feeling pretty confident about this one. Because
I think the scenarios in both of our games completely
favoured me.
That's the polite way of putting it.
You both on table 3, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you're quite high up. Yeah.
So I mean, it was quite, I think if we'd been mid-table somewhere, we probably would have gone. Well, we've already played it,
and we would have swapped. But yeah, being high.
Whoever won this game did have a chance at podium, essentially.
Yeah.
Depending on the score, could have had the chance at podium, going onto the podium. So I mean, as you can see, that's Sam's force, which is mostly all hero. 3 hunters, elf twins.
It is all hero.
Oh, it is all hero, yeah.
Yeah.
Got a ranger who's like minor hero compared to everyone else who's hero for
Yeah.
And this on my side is what I basically, when you hear Saruman go on about the Iron Fist of the Orc, this I think is what he's talking about. I love the new assaults on Helm's Deep Legion. The reason I love it is because it's incredibly similar to how I have always used to run Isengard just without any named heroes. I've always been a fan of Isengard troops. They have 4s across the board where you need them. So they've got fight 4, strength 4. Only courage 3, but that's why you take a shaman. The captain in this gets 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 1 special captain. And I decided to go with 2 banners because when you've got a lot of troops, in this case, I actually think that there's an argument for having them. I'm not sure what else I would have spent 25 points on. That wouldn't have just been a couple of extra warriors. And I'm already running about 50 in this list. So, Storm the Camp. Again, it's having enough models, being able to take the area. I felt pretty confident about this one, just because the scenario did very heavily favour me.
Yeah, I wasn't too keen on this. I tell you what, I would have liked to have played this game with Smaug. I think in our games, in hindsight, I would have quite liked to have swapped the armies round. So played your Uruk-hai at Capture Control, which I still think I would have lost, but there's more, chance of me getting into combat and, having because we start so far up the board, and then playing Smaug at Storm the Camp because he's such a big base, he can block up a large portion of the board and get to the middle quite quick, so we could reasonably stop those, the knights getting in. So yeah, that would have been cool to do in hindsight. But yeah, I always knew this was going to be incredibly tough, especially as you had a bucket load of crossbows, berserkers. I just had to run. You can see where I had to run. I think I had two tiny hills to try and hide behind versus two, flanks of crossbows. So wherever I run, I was going to be getting shot. And we kind of said as we were playing, if you can kill a hero or two in shooting or seriously wound them, then that's really going to, impact how well I can play this game. Even with Aragorn's free heroic march. Every turn.
And I think, I guess you could have tried to defend your own camp, but that's a lot of Uruk-hai to try and keep out. And
it also would have made for a very boring game. Go back to the point you made in your game against CJ, where it's like, oh come on, charge me, and I don't think it would have been the right play for the Grey Company to stay in their camp. I wouldn't have been able to defend it against you because you got far too many models. I didn't have the shooting, to reduce, your enough of your force before it got to me, realistically.
So if you take the battle to the centre, you forced me to have to vote men to not just storm straight to your camp, and there's always the chance that you roll sixes, you might get Aragorn's and Bragg marches through.
Yeah, if I can hold you in the middle for as long as possible, try and kill as many as possible as quickly as possible, and as far away from my camp, then the game can end before you have a chance to get there. That was the plan. But yeah, I knew it was always going to be a tough game.
So Sam moved up to the centre. Oh, is that the only picture I got? 1 second. I think the order's just gotten a bit messed up. Sam moved up to the centre. I pretty much pushed forward against him. I got to a point where, I think Sam was behind that hill, and then moved a little bit beyond it. I think I survived Legolas's shot if he made one.
I wasn't making any shots. It wasn't, it was more important to get everybody up together for that combat potential. But what you had done that, as soon as you did it, I saw, the game slipping away, and we hadn't even got to combat, was you very cleverly, whether you'd done it on purpose, you'd positioned obviously 2 sets of crossbows either side of that hill, but you'd also positioned more one side, but on the other side where there was less, there was also, kind of an escaping force and a lot more models. And it was kind of, well, do I run towards more crossbows where there's less dudes, or do I run towards less crossbows but where there's more dudes and try and stop that, stop that breakaway? And it was going to be futile either way, but I think in the end I actually went for the, the more suicidal option, try and block off as many crossbows as possible, which didn't matter in the end because that hill is deceptively small. And yeah, I think that the first turn you got to shoot, you absolutely nailed one of the elf twins.
Which
caused the other twin to go berserk.
It was like just enough wounds to kill him, even with his fate or something.
You did manage to get 5 wounds through, which is obviously enough to kill him outright, and obviously that meant the other twin had to leg it off.
My reason for picking the twin was purely because, in spite of their wounds and in spite of their fate, they're actually weaker than any of your other models, maybe except for Halbarad.
Or Legolas.
I'm not entirely sure I could see Halbarad at the time. And that was it. I don't think I clocked that Legolas had armor. But having said that, I probably still would have gone for the twins because they're 3 attack models.
Yeah.
And, well,
If
with
they
their
get if they get into combat, they do like to tear things apart.
Yeah. So with 1 elf twin down, that basically forced your other twin to chase after the crossbows. Now, I had the choice here. I could have sent a crossbow to the other corner of the board, but for me, that's the difference between playing tactically and, it's like when you watch a game of football and they run to the corner flag and put their foot on the ball with 89 minutes to go. With a minute to go. It's that kind of thing if it's just not enjoyable for your opponent. So I think I just sent the crossbow with another little group that was trying to flank anyway.
There was about five or six guys down there. There was a couple of berserkers, a couple of crossbows, and to be fair, I think you was just quite happy to let the twin just go and murderize that little band, and everything else just kind of walked away and went, "Yep, you can go play with them." And he just went absolutely nuts. But it did mean I was, a combat hero down from being dead, and a combat hero, out of my block. That I was relying on to try and stop you from advancing up the board.
I mean, from where you can see, I've moved. The centre block of Urukai, all it was ever going to do was move forward and stop to shoot, move forward, stop to shoot. The flank little groups with 4 berserkers on each one, their ultimate aim was to try and avoid the heroes if possible. Didn't matter if both of them did it. Just needed one to get through and then try and take on the single ranger who's defending. Again, I think it was a very rough scenario for you to have to approach in the last game.
Yeah, I'd left my ranger of the north back there for the sole purpose of being able to hold my camp. And, on the off chance, 1 or 2 snuck through, I thought, well, fight 4 ranger. He's got 2 attacks. He's got a might point. Obviously, he can shoot as they run towards him because chances are it's going to be moving, so he can't shoot me back. And then if I can get it in combat, I should be able to kill it. But I think as we'll see as the game goes on, I didn't stop as many as I'd like.
In retrospect, would you have left Legolas with him?
I don't know. Maybe. The thing is with Leggy, he's got 3 might. And is quite handy in combat in a pinch. And I think, knowing that I was going to have to kill as many as possible, I don't think I would have left Leggy there because he leaves too much. I think I'd miss out on those might points if they were at the back. In a bigger game, let's say if we were playing 1,000 points. I'd probably leave Leggy there with a couple more rangers, because I'd get another 10 rangers, so I could quite feasibly leave Leggy with 3 or 4, send the other 6 rangers up, and that more than makes up for the loss of those 3 might points that Leggy will have at the back. Whereas here, losing the fight 6, the 2 attacks, the 3 might was just something that I didn't want to take that risk of combat, being able to get surrounded, because I think that was the one thing that I did do well here was, position the hero so that it was very hard, for you to trap Halbrad, or get to Halbrad. Had I left him behind, he wouldn't have been able to kill as many in shooting as he did in combat. I'm quite happy with the fact I sent him in, because the plan was stop you about where you are now, and do as much damage, and anything that gets through, hope that I can get you to 66%, and you start taking courage tests.
I think this photo was from when the elf twin is making a beeline to the attack crossbow, who is this guy here.
Yeah, the marker on him.
Halbrad's kind of making sure he's just in banner range of other people, because that reroll is pretty crucial.
Yeah.
I reckon Halbrad is certainly in an all-hero ranger force, he is the best hero you can buy.
behind Aragorn, because you have to have him. Halbrad's first name on the team sheet with the banner. Like that banner, I'd play a 300-point game and take Halbrad with the banner. And that would be half my points. But Halbrad with his big awesome banner is amazing. 6-inch rerolls, fearless. Just takes this list to a point where they can be competitive, even at lower points. And obviously, it helps Aragorn and the twins. When that they can re-roll one of them 3 dice that they've got.
Like, just on a side note, it'd be actually quite interesting seeing this run is all mounted. So you take Aragorn, Halbrad mounted, and then
Legendary Legion, you can't take them mounted. That is the downside. And I think we might have even touched on it in the first video of, would you just take this list as it is out of the army book, where you can get access to horses for everybody, but you lose the free Thranduril, which I think, again, we touched on it in the last video, but I saw that having Thranduril for free as a much better option than having a 10-point horse. Plus lost my train of thought. Aragorn can heroic march, so he can basically go 9 a turn anyway if he needs to. Obviously, he can't charge, he doesn't get the knockdown, but I would rather be having 3 dice on 4s than 8 dice on 5s or 6s.
Where I'm sort of going with this is just thinking about it is I suppose if you played a kind of less fluffy but still kind of fluffy version of, I suppose the problem is, like, for thematic reasons, you only get the banner once you've done the Path of the Dead thing. I'm just thinking Halbrad mounted, Aragorn mounted, Elf Twins mounted, and then maybe Gandalf thrown in, like Gandalf the Grey. But I don't know, at that stage, are you too worried about army bonuses? You're probably not going to be still too much.
So
take Frodo.
You get, yes, if you start to get dismounted, if you take actual Grey, Rangers of the North, because obviously they lose their 2 attacks on foot if you break the army bonus or if you're not green, which for them is key. If they're on foot with 1 attack, they just die. And I think there's better all hero lists you could do that don't worry about army bonuses at all. Namely, like Gil-galad on the horse with Gandalf the White, because it's red anyway. You're not getting any army bonuses, and that. And then you throw in Aragorn, like Aragorn the King or Strider, because everything's impossible allies. So you can make better or hero. I think with Grey Company, you want to have Aragorn's special sword. Maybe now in these new scenarios, because there's a lot where you have to, move, and there's a lot of mobility. Maybe there's an argument for just taking them as, the Grey Company army list rather than the Grey Company Legendary Legion, and throwing maybe a couple of Rangers on horse. I can't say that, if I'd had a couple of just standard Rangers of the North on horse, they might have been able to outflank and get into the camp. Maybe. Again, maybe at bigger points where, you've got a bit more wiggle room to play with, you could do that. But I really like the Grey Company Legendary Legion. It feels super fluffy, and when it works, it works really well. I think in this tournament, it's just unfortunate I came up against, the correct counter, should we say, in both lists. And, you had the armies to play the scenarios, which is where I think, that's why I lost the first game, and it's why I'm well on my way to losing this one.
So, just very quickly, this group of 3 berserkers on the side manages to get past Gimli. I think you successfully take this guy out. I can't remember how.
I think I threw an axe at him.
And then pretty much the Uruks hit this little group. You did quite well initially. Managed to get. You were trapped in almost every fight, but again, it's that thing of if you got the higher fight, and if I can't do anything about it, I did have a shaman, but I'd thrown a channeled transfix at it with 2 will, so I wasn't going to throw the last point out for a transfix unless it was a golden opportunity. Reasons I channeled it. I'm up against all hero.
Channel Fury, not Channel Transfix.
Oh yeah, sorry, Channel
Yeah.
Fury. The reason to channel it was just because this is a game that is going to come down to how many men survive, and even it being the reduced version compared to previous editions where you're just ignoring wounds on a 6, it's one more chance to avoid taking a wound, and when you've got enough men, it does start to add up.
Well, there was a few times where I know Gimli definitely failed a heroic combat because you saved, that model, and a couple of times Aragon had, chopped down a few, only for 2 of them to get back up again. Yeah. And not only does it help you, it's also quite demoralising, when every kill, helps.
Every kill matters for you.
Everything matters for me. I have to be killing as many models a turn, and when one doesn't die, that's a real big issue for me, because there's something else I've got to kill next turn. It's someone else that can help kill me next turn.
So it looks like that is the last picture I took of today. I think my description of how the rest of the game kind of went on, these 3 berserkers ran all the way to your camp, and you actually wounded 2 of them with shooting.
Yeah, that ranger did well. I think one died and one just ignored it.
Yeah. I think, again, like you were speaking about demoralising, you'd spent your single point of might to win first berserker, and then you rolled 6.
Yeah.
But you did wound one of them on the way in, and then the other 2 basically hit you both at the same time, and
Yeah. Yeah. That ranger tried his best. I think he might have even won a fight in one of the first combats that he did, and unfortunately didn't kill. And then you was able to get on him and kill him, and it was pretty much game over there anyway. But
this ended up either Eladan or Elrohir ran over to the crossbow guy who killed the other one. You managed to kill the crossbow, and surprisingly, this entire group of berserkers and crossbows and banner down here just gradually got cut apart by the other elf.
By the angry elf. And say that my band of heroes did really well, but it's just the classical hero that they only perform well for as long as you have might or are rolling 6s. And I think my dice were just as tired as I was by the end of this, because they started to wear out, and then the might, I have to start bumping up the might, and obviously you've not got many heroes, you're just like, yeah, sure, burn your might on these 3 warriors of
I'm pretty
Isengard
sure
warriors.
At one point you had to use most of Halberad's to get him to win a fight, but he was severely trapped in, because he was so valuable. Like, he just kind of went, for 2 might or whatever it was.
And I remember having to do something similar with Aragon, where he rolled like a 3 and was trapped by like 8 Uruk-hai, and was like, well, this isn't good. So I burnt all his might, and I think one by one you cut them down. I think in the end you had Aragon versus the captain with just a ring of Uruk-hai around him.
Yeah, I have to admit that was, having taken your objective, that was kind of an attempt for you to actually score some victory points, and I thought it's probably been a bit of a grueling game for you. So
it was grueling, and I think I broke you in the sense that I got you below 50%, but obviously Uruk-hai don't take tests until 66. So
with shame and active,
they'd done their job. They'd killed half, which is what you'd want to do against most armies. But the Isengard, Isengard in general are always my bane. I despise playing against them because they are so tough. And now they've got this legendary legion, just rocks it up to another level. But no, it was a good fun game. I don't think I would have done much different other than not lose that twin to the first round of shooting, but I can't do much about that.
I think the only thing I'd have maybe done differently is maybe just try and, not a huge amount, but maybe just like 1 extra warrior on each of the groups that I sent to take your camp. My heart really in my mouth when that when I had 2 berserkers fighting the 1 ranger, because even though I have the dice advantage, I just kind of went, if you win this combat, mentally, if you win this combat and win twice, I can't take your camp, because all the rest of my warriors have still got miles to go before I can get there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was almost banking on was, I've used these rangers a lot, and they're usually very good in combat. If I could just get that, bit of luck, win the fight. I've got 2 dice, so I can quite easily throw, 2 5s out with a might point because I hadn't used it. Put 2 wounds on you. You have to then roll double 6 to keep them alive, or A6, to keep someone in there. And yeah, the odds were high, but I was hoping for just a smidge of luck, and say it wasn't to be. So yeah, two losses to you in one event. Severely owe you a good beating. Yeah. Maybe we'll play 40k.
Yes, you will definitely beat me at that these days.
Yeah.
I am currently working on a 40k army, but it's purely narrative, and I don't really expect it to do very well because it has very limited selection of units. I've gone for it. Anyway, back to the SPG. So this was my last game of the day, and a pretty convincing victory. I don't think I scored maximum victory points because you broke me.
Yeah. I think it was something like 11-1 or 10-1. Because you just kind of left your super leader captain. He was just quite cool, chilling behind the lines, being like, throwing Urks into the Aragon meat grinder.
That was quite deliberate because initially I kept him as my final blow, if you like, because I couldn't care less about how many Urukai or which particular Urukai you chop up. But
just didn't want him to be chopped up.
Well, basically, I wanted those might points that he's got to start going into the fights once you'd run out of the ability to strike.
Yeah.
And when it becomes more about rolling higher, I'm waiting for Aragon to roll a 3 highest and for my Urukai captain to bump it up.
Yeah.
That was when I wanted to throw him in, or to use his might to get an extra wound on Gimli or something. But Gimli has always been my bane to fight against because regardless of what I've done, I've never managed to scratch him. And yet when I use him myself, he always dies.
He dies to a stiff breeze.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe it's just proof that I'm an elf player and not an orc one.
Possibly. So yeah, I finished on 2 wins, 2 losses, with both of those losses coming to Kieran. So moral of the story from this was don't grudge match Kieran.
And I finished up with 3 wins and 1 draw. And moral of the story was,
play Sam twice.
Yeah, play Sam twice. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be scared of Smaug.
Yeah, don't be scared of Smaug, or at least try and play the scenario, not the dragon.
Yeah.
And don't be scared to get Boromir stuck in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, how did you do in your final?
Yeah, so I was less optimistic about this one from the start. So I had my Thranduril's Halls, which was obviously Thrandur on elk, Tariel, Leggy on horse with Orcrist, and then just a mix of everything. I was once again on the Rohan, really nice Rohan board that I'd already played on, and Kieran yourself had been on the last game. And I think I was playing Johnny, and he had a very similar elite Isengard list to what I played with my Thranduril's Halls in game 2, except he had a ballista. So he had Lurtz, he had Ugluk, as I say, the ballista, he had Vrashku, and then just generic mix of 12 crossbows, bunch of shields, bunch of pipes, bunch of berserkers.
Wonderful.
So,
that sounds awful.
Yeah, by any chance, was that Johnny Manory? Or something
yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I've got a feeling I played him at the Battle of Boromir, and it was that ballista that squandered my chance of victory in that game. But anyway, go on.
So we rolled to see which camp we'd deploy in, which corner of the board. He rolled higher, and where I had all of the luck in game 3, I think I had none of the luck in game 4. So it balanced out. So he was able to the watchtower and the palisades on one side, with the walkways, were just inside the 12 inches of his corner. So he picked that side. So he was able to put Vrashku and all 12 of his crossbows up in really high positions, with no gets all that sort of thing. Who had a perfect range to see over all the buildings and whatever across the battlefield. And I was like, oh wow. So he's got a very defensive formation and still probably more models than me. So even with Rashgu and 12 crossbows up there, plus a ballista defending his camp, he still had more models than me and the stuff that he could advance to my camp than I did.
Ouch.
I was like, yeah, this is bad. So this is where this is where game 4 tiredness comes in for me, because I'm getting old now.
Oh yeah, you're so old.
I had an idea in mind of, because I had my Mirkwood Rangers. I had 5 of them and Tarrier. And I thought, oh, here's a chance for their high points with Elven Cloaks, lots of buildings to come into play. So I moved them up to one side, started to advance my elf army a little bit to meet him sort of close to the middle, but not commit too far. They move up one side, hide behind a fence. They can shoot his crossbows without being seen, but he can't shoot them back because obviously they're uncloaked.
Yeah.
So I was hoping to chip a few off there, and this is where I was getting quite tired. In that, if I was playing the long game to really try and like be filthy competitive, I'd just sit there and do that.
Yeah, that would be a good plan.
Knowing also that, like, if I was in my tournament winning mind, knowing that CJ and Kieran, the tables below, were on draws, knowing that if I was on table 1, I'd obviously scored quite highly and doing quite well. One of you like had to lose. Like, if I'd just done that, then maybe take the draw, maybe chip a wound off Lurtz with Leggy auto hitting him or something along the way if he started to try to advance, that kind of thing. But no, I started to push up, see if I could like score a bit more, make it a bit more interesting. And where the ballista hit nothing in the last game, in this game he hit nothing with like, I don't know, 12 shots, except for one where he managed to hit Thranduril, wound him, and I failed all 3 Fate on 1s.
Had
And
you
he died.
seen one of his might points?
I think I'd used one to like.
Yeah, you used one for something that wasn't very, probably wasn't in hindsight important.
No.
And off he went.
Like, right. So now I'm 1-0 down, chasing the game, so I have to go and do something. I was like, I'll send in everything in anyway. Like, I wanted to make more of a game of it than just sitting there with 6 shots every turn with him not being able to do anything. That's not fun for anyone. Like, I'll see what I can do. So he starts to move the ballista around to be able to see my rangers. They had to back off a little bit. He sends some berserkers around towards them. He pushes Lurtz out in a whole big block. Legolas, like, interweave that you saw on the pictures of Kieran's game. There's so many buildings sort of like running from cover to cover, like some sort of Splinter Cell agent. But they're going on, peering around corners with their little P90 pistols. Eventually got into a position where I could run around the corner and charge stuff. I don't think Legolas won a combat. I don't think Tarrier won a combat. They eventually got cut down quite easily. I also forgot I was quite tired at this point that Chris caused terror, so that could have saved a whole bunch of orcs charging into him. He also had Orc Captain on Warg as well, and 3 Warg Riders who are like going around the edges behind all the walls towards the camp. Because Thranduril was damaged at this point, I was like, I'm going to keep away from the ballista. He can just hunt down that stuff. And he, Nature's Wrath, managed to dismount the 3 generic Warg Riders and not the captain, because he obviously it's 3 in range now, and the captain was too far away. I then charged 2 of the orcs on foot and bounced off, didn't kill them. Charged them the next turn, bounced off. Charged again the next turn, bounced off. Meanwhile, the orc captain was making his way merrily into my camp. I then got stuck on a 2-handed orc on foot with Thranduil on elk for a further 2 or 3 turns. Just to get away. I was like, what even is this game? My rangers did manage to turn around and like shoot the captain out of the camp, so ultimately there's not really too much more to say about this game, unfortunately. Ultimately he was able to grind down, break me, and wound the leader. So it was a 4-0 win. So my thoughts, like halfway through, were it's just damage limitation and see if I could still finish in a podium. And hope that the others were lower scoring. But it was pretty tough from the outset that he was able to defend such a high position, see so much of the board with such strong shooting, and still have enough models to go and disrupt my camp. Like, even if he wasn't able to wound Thranduril, I reckon he was still able to, with my rolling in that game, he was probably still able to roll through and do what he wanted.
It's something that, going on to that terrain placement, that we, it's something you've got to bear in mind when you are a TO and you're, putting terrain on a table is now, it's not just, 12 on in a square, there is all this funky deployment, and you don't want to position, so we don't position ruins or tree or forests or anything within 12 inches of the corner for that exact reason. Or if we have to, then it's one in each corner, so both are the same. Because it sounds like him being able to pick that corner was pretty.
It was a 50-50 roll at the start. That was then pretty much dictated the game from then on.
And the game shouldn't be decided on a 50-50 before you've even deployed. And obviously, I know it isn't. Things can happen in the game, but having that advantage. But it's one of them things.
It's a tough one as well, because obviously to kind of capture the feel for Lord of the Rings, you obviously want tables with woods, tables with like Rohani villages, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's trying to make sure that I've seen a lot of tournaments run independent tournaments where they've got beautiful scenic boards like Osgiliath and all that kind of stuff. But you tend to find that the top two spaces tend to be fairly generic hills, maybe a bit of forest in a nondescript place.
I think
I've had some people argue that forests shouldn't be on table one, and that's because certain armies get benefits from it and others don't.
But then that's the same for having walls or ruins or something like that. To position archers on. If you don't have archers, then there's no point in you having them walls. But maybe in hindsight, the Rohan board should have been, further down to allow, the more, the lower tables to have a go on it. I'm always quite fond. What's that?
The more fun games, as it were, can be on.
Yeah, more fun games. I get also. I don't know if you guys remember. I was always quite fond of just reversing the table numbers halfway through an event.
Oh yeah.
Because as much as the players at the bottom don't like playing on the same table, it can also be the same for the top. The top players playing on the top couple of tables. So halfway through the event, just swap around all the table numbers is sometimes quite a nice curveball.
As much as I enjoyed it, I did use Thranduril's Halls against two identical Orc armies on the same board in both games.
Yeah.
Would have been nice to do something a little bit. Obviously, they're both still really enjoyable. Both opponents were really nice and love the day as a whole. But that's just a little something.
Yeah. But as I think, as you said, it was a fun event. It is rough, when you got to run. Well, as I did, you have to run into Uruk-hai crossbows. Even tougher when they're up on a defensible position in the objective, backed up with a siege engine.
So it really rolled back the years to 2015 when I first started doing tournaments, having you basically helping TO, and then me storming my first couple of games, then getting to the end and then just being bitch slapped back down.
Yeah, get back down where you belong.
That's my kind of thing with. I don't think there is an easy tournament to go to these days, because wherever you go, there are always skilled players, and there are so many good players in the game now.
Yeah, 100%
years
agree.
Back, 8 people at a tournament, going back far enough, that would be considered a reasonable turnout.
Yeah.
Now that there are tournaments that smash those numbers, it's just wherever you go, there is someone who knows what they're doing and how to play their list, and so there are no easy victories.
Yeah, and it's not even at that top end.
Mm.
What was that, Chris?
this was 7 players and considered like a local tournament, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 27, and it was the biggest they'd ever run. And that was with the GT being on the same weekend. And even though some of the best players in the UK were at the GT, there were some very good players here at this event. And say in years gone by, as Kieran said, you go to an event and it'd be the top 5 or 6. You'd know, right, they're going to be at the top at the end. Whereas now there's so many good players that ultimately they lose throughout the event and they end up down into the mid-table, which is where I generally sit. And all of a sudden it's like, well, where did all these good players come from?
They've been learning.
Yeah, when did everybody get good, or when did I get so rubbish? I'm sure some people would argue that I never got good.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't jump in before me there, Chris, to be honest.
So on final standings, so the tournament was rated on victory point difference, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Wins, so tournament points, victory point difference, and then victory points scored.
Okay. So who ended up where?
So it was quite close, and I honestly can't remember what. So Johnny Manwaring won. He was tied with second place on tournament points, VP diff. So he took it on the third tiebreaker, which was obviously VP scored, and he had scored one more VP than the player in second place, whose name escapes me.
Kieran Hatton.
Kieran.
Yes, it was. Yeah, so he beat Kieran by a point, and both of them were coming up to me at the end when I put it in, like, oh, who's won? I'm like, well, it's close. It's on the third tiebreaker, and they're like, oh, Kieran, that means you've won. And I'm like, well, we'll see. And Kieran, you came third.
I did.
On the 3 wins and a draw. Sometimes a tactical draw is always good, just to bump yourselves into them podium places.
I have to admit, I was just hoping to get podium at the end, but obviously it's like, it comes down to the mathematics of what everyone else has done. A quick point, Kieran Hatton was the winner, and Johnny Mannering was in second place.
Was it the other way around?
Yeah.
Yes.
But like you said, it was incredibly close.
There was one VP in it, and it was VP scored that decided it. Chris, I believe you came fourth.
No, hang on. I was in third. Chris came fifth with Danny just above him.
Oh, okay. And then I was down like 9 or 13 or something.
As Tom Harrison likes to call it, mid-table obscurity.
Mid-table obscurity, yeah. So I'm becoming very familiar with the mid-table. But no, it was a really fun event. I don't think I stuck around for too much longer after that because I had to travel back to Manchester, which is actually quite sunny today. It's a shame we're all in lockdown. Thoroughly enjoyed the event. Would definitely recommend the East Anglia Hobbit Community one-day events. If they do any more, I'll probably come down for them because it was good fun and I like one-day events and I get to see you guys, which I don't get to see as much.
What really impressed me was that out of every game that I played that day, they were all like, I know that 2 of them were against you, but my other 2 opponents were really sporting. Sometimes you come to these things and you have not going to say super negative opponents, but people who really kind of like they're playing hard to win. To sort of generous with sort of measurements and things. And everyone that I played that day was a great game, just a really enjoyable experience.
Oh, I think it was a really good call by the East Anglia guys to run it on the same day as the GT, because then everyone who wanted to go and be competitive and play top games went to the GT. I walked in and bar a few people, I didn't recognize anybody there, which was quite refreshing almost, to go into a room of 30 gamers and only be like, well, I only know like 5 of you, and have some new opponents.
The GT itself, the not GT itself, was purely hosted because basically a lot of the people there kind of wanted to go to the GT, but it sold
didn't
out.
get tickets. Yeah.
I mean, I was actually in Thailand on holiday when the tickets went on sale. So I'd given some money to a friend to try and book a ticket for me and themselves. And they couldn't get through. Like, by the time they jumped onto the website, they were all sold out.
Yeah. Hang on. The postman's trying to destroy my front door. I'll be back in a second.
No worry. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's hugely great as well that, the GT is selling out so quickly in terms of it shows that there is demand, and it shows that, the Lord of the Rings game is as popular as it's ever been.
In minutes.
Yeah, it's just a shame, though, because obviously we like to go along to it as well.
Yeah.
I can get a foot in the door this time.
At least there's always other options.
Yeah. I mean, obviously with all the thing with what's going on in the world, and have been postponed or pushed back further this year, so it's going to be a really, really busy year for SBG once the COVID thing is resolved, hopefully.
Oh, I can't wait! Can't wait for that to go away.
I mean, there's something like 3 doubles events this year alone. 4.
Yeah.
You've got Seven Stone, Strider Cup. I think her name Becky Legally, or sorry if I've mispronounced that, is hosting her first doubles as well. And those are just the doubles events. There's loads of singles up and down the country. Most of them have been pushed back to later dates because in the current climate you just can't host a social event. But
no,
there are obviously going to be a lot of tournaments towards the end of the year, so it's going to be packed, I think, is the schedule.
Yeah, I think Games Workshop would do very well out of it eventually, because I mean, just chatting to the local game stores up here and looking at their online stock, they've been absolutely hammered. But yeah, there's going to be lots and lots of events to go to when this whole thing is over, whenever that may be. But go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, so at the end of the 4-game tournament, anything that you would do differently under those new match play scenarios? Anything?
Yeah,
anything
not grudge you.
Choices. Well, I mean,
next
time
I'm going to grudge Chris instead, because I can beat Chris in a tournament setting. The only time I can't beat Chris is when I'm playing in his front room.
And I think we've played each other once at a tournament, and I beat you. I remember that.
Yeah, but I know I definitely can't beat you in your front room. But there's more of a chance. There's more of a chance at a tournament. No, I don't think I would have done too much different. Yeah, I think, as I said just before I had to go and save my front door, there was it was a great deal of fun. I love both of the games. I loved all 4 of my games. I think I'll echo what you said a few minutes ago. Everyone was really sporting. When we was counting up the sporting votes at the end, everybody got one. Which, having not done many tournaments, I don't know how common that is, but from when I last ran a tournament a couple of years ago, that's way higher than what it is usually. Usually you'd get 3 or 4 people who get loads and a few other people who get 1 or 2. But for every player to get a sporting vote was really, it was shows the quality and the class of the event. So kudos to Josh and the East Anglia guys. They got a good crowd down there, and I think, as I said, I'll happily go back.
Definitely. It's only a stone's throw from where I am at the moment anyway, so definitely going to try and make an appearance at more events this year. Well, if not this year, then
maybe next year. Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe wrap things up there. We've almost spoken for about 2 hours, so hopefully you are still watching at this point.
Thank you.
And if you people watching at home have got any advice for us to improve our games, anything you think we should have done differently, any bits that you think we maybe got a bit wrong or that weren't clear as we talked about them, just put them in the comments. We had a really nice comment on part 1 of this series, and that was that I think it was Tom or someone said, you guys deserve more subscribers. we don't really do it for subscribers. We just we don't generate any revenue from doing these. We just do it because we love wargaming and we love this hobby.
And because we're bored on lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as I think the phrase goes, comment, like, share, and subscribe. If you enjoy our videos, try and put them out there to other people you think are going to enjoy them. And stay tuned for whatever it is we decide to do next.
Yeah, do that.
Right, catch you later, guys.
See ya. Is it off?